So for a period of time this week, the media were prevented from naming a high-profile British businessman who was at the centre of sexual harassment allegations. The High Court injunction that this individual had obtained covered the mainstream media in England and Wales, although incidentally not valid in Scotland, so I did briefly think about doing this.
Asphalt green.
On Thursday, however, Lord Haines used parliamentary privilege to name the individual in the House of Lords, which means that the injunction is basically no longer effective. Although before that, the Telegraph had printed a sort of weird outline of him, so you would probably recognise him from your I Spy book of creepy British businessmen, which is a surprisingly long read. The interesting thing is that this kind of injunction simply shouldn't exist. For this reason, when somebody has been a victim of crime, the idea that the state is going to tell you that you're not allowed to say out loud what has happened to you is absolutely disgusting. It's vile. It is the creeping beginnings of a fascist state. And if you're a guy out there and you're thinking, oh, but what about people being falsely accused, and what about trial by social media? Let me be super clear. That is what these super powerful assholes want you to think. They want you on their side. They want you to feel paranoid that you could be next. The fact is that the Me Too movement involved every woman I have ever met in my entire life, and probably every woman you've ever met in your entire life or interacted with, saying that they had been a victim at some point in their lives of sexual harassment or sexual assault or other things of that nature. And as a result, a handful of high-profile figures have had any comeback at all, like maybe they've been named, maybe they've had, lost some work or something. Exactly one person is in prison, Bill Cosby. So, the whole of the Me Too movement, and not one single white guy has actually been to prison, in spite of all these thousands and thousands and millions of allegations out there. So your chance of having your life ruined because you've been falsely accused is super, super low. There's absolutely no need to be worried about it. If you're worried about that, you might as well wander around looking upwards in case a meteorite lands. And let's remember that there are people who have been very convincingly accused and it definitely hasn't hurt them. Like, for example, Donald Trump, who is still the leader of the free world, and he openly admits that he did it. So the idea that it's going to ruin your whole life is just a nonsense. What would be much more sensible would be to worry about all those women in your life who've been affected by these issues and have had absolutely no justice and absolutely no comeback. And for many of them, it will have seriously affected their lives and held them back and all this kind of stuff. Next up, it's really important that we do name these individuals when they're accused, and that's because victims of these kind of crimes often feel ashamed and embarrassed and isolated, and they feel like when they've been harassed by somebody super powerful, if they come forward, they're going to just be on the receiving end of a horrific backlash, and they're probably right. But when these people are named publicly, there's an opportunity for others who've had a similar experience to come forward and talk about it. And there's just isn't an opportunity for bandwagon jumping, because what happens is we look at the details of the allegations, and in cases like the Louis C.K. case, we find over and over again the same kind of modus operandi working. He's doing this the same way over and over again. And when you build a portfolio of these stories that match up so many times over the tiny little specifics and details, it becomes a very, very compelling piece of evidence, and frankly, something should be done about it. But the number one reason why these injunctions simply shouldn't exist is because they are the epitome of how the justice system works to support those at the top and does nothing for those at the bottom. This is justice that is available only to the super rich. And when it's available only to the super rich, we sure shouldn't be calling it justice. If justice is now a luxury product, maybe we should just advertise it as such, right? This isn't just justice. This is luxury, high-end, taste the difference justice. So sit back in your beach lounger, in your tropical tax haven, crack open a fresh checkbook, and enjoy the silence that only this kind of money can buy. You absolute fucking arsehole.